Welcome to this week's episode of Your Stock Request for the 18th of April. Hi, I'm Michael Gable, Managing Director of Fairmont Equities. Your Stock Request is a weekly video where I take your requests and analyse the share price charts. So this week we have Sims Group, SIQ, Fortescue, Car Sales and WKT. So if you have requests, make sure you email it through. Make sure you've signed up to our free newsletter and that you're sharing this video on social media. And finally, any advice here is general only. So we'll start off with Sims Group. This is the weekly chart. So I'll just zoom in a bit. The bounce off the lows earlier this year initially was quite impressive. So we're looking at sort of $9 to $12. However, if we look at what's happened in the last week, we've had a bit of a sell-off there. So an impulsive move down and the volume's kicked up. So a bit of a negative sign there for Sims. What I've noticed is so far it seems to be rejecting this old support level. So if it turns around here, we might see a move back into the nines, unfortunately. So for the short term, just looking a little bit weak for SGM. Smart Group. So we'll look at the weekly chart. Again, if we look at the start of the year, basically we're trading lower, so it's underperformed the market. If we have a look at the daily chart, so initially it moved higher with the market in January, but this I guess was a bit of a sign that we're possibly going to see weakness. So we had this sell-off here, this sort of sharp sell-off on volume. And then for several days later, it really struggled to get through the midpoint of this candle, which is a bit of a negative sign. Obviously, it then continued to fall on the disappointing result. So at the end of the day, if we move back to the weekly chart, we could see that we've still got a downtrend here. So at the moment, I just can't see signs of it doing anything too great on the upside. Fortescue. Obviously, it's had its, we've spoken about this one a few times. We've had the sort of rounding off here, the break of the downtrend, and then that fantastic run, which obviously has caught everyone a little bit by surprise because of the issues in South America. $7 was a key level for it. So if we just zoom out here on the weekly, so we could see that was obviously a key level and it's pushed right through it. However, if we go back to the daily chart, we can see we've had a gap down here on increasing volume. So that's a negative sign. So I think short term, we can't expect too much from Fortescue, unfortunately. But ideally, we want to see that $7 region be the new support level. So we want to see that be the new, I guess, line in the sand, the baseline for the stock. So let's just see how it trades over the next few weeks. Car sales. So if we have a look at the weekly chart, I quite like the price action since the beginning of the year. So, nice sort of moves up here where we've had gapping up, bit of a pullback, but nice buying coming in. Again, a bit of a corrective pullback. The buying taking us to a new high in less time. So all that looks pretty good. However, there's some obvious resistance here just above $13, which it seems to be, pushing back on. So short term, it'll probably consolidate. Ideally, we want to see a fairly flat consolidation. If we see a sharp sell-off from here, that would be a negative sign. But as long as it can hold in up here, that's a positive, and it just gets itself ready to move through that resistance level. WKT, Walkabout Resources. So we've got a weekly chart here. So what's nice about this chart is we've had this sort of pullback and rounding out of the low on lower volume. But then as it starts to go higher, we could see the volume ticking up. So all of that's a positive sign. Intra-week, so this is a weekly chart, we can see price action looks weak. We've had a rejection here. Moving to the daily chart, we could see the volatility increasing. So we've had this sort of big sell-off yesterday, so a really big daily range on big volume. So now it looks fairly soft. It's hard, this thing might whip around here for a while, so I think buying it around here is quite risky. I think ideally if you see it back to these sorts of lower regions, that would be a better entry point. But I think trying to pick it up here around 25, you know, it might hit 30, come back, it might go back to 20, you're sort of buying it in no man's land. So ideally you'd want to see some weakness, and I think yesterday's price action is telling us we should expect a bit of weakness. All right, well that's it for this week. Make sure you send your requests through. Next week's Anzac Day, so we'll be looking at it the week after.